It is live. Yeah, it's on your Facebook, not the test, right? But I go to your channel to see. We ask that you bless these and bless all of our friends that are here with us today. Lord, we understand one thing that we don't have any control. Matter of fact, there's nothing that we can do except offer our service to you. So today, Lord, we're offering our service to you. And we ask that you lift us your spirit, that you bless us, that you give us that thing which we don't have, that you push us, and Lord, and then we will find. We ask that you give us clean minds. Yeah, I hear you. We ask that if there's anything that's in us that's not like you, we ask that you remove it. In the name of Jesus, bless us as we go forth on this program in your service. In your service. Give you praise. Give you praise.
Hebrews 12 chapter. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. You have not yet resisted to bloodshed, striving against sin, and you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you so as to sons. Nor he discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and scourges every son whom he receives. The Lord's word is already blessed.
Let us go to a word of prayer. Be gracious, Heavenly Father, truly we thank you for an opportunity to put on this Black History Play. We thank you, dear Lord, for the Ebony Ensemble group and throughout the years they have stood together and have done the work of the Lord. So we pray, dear Lord, for anointing for all the musicians. We pray, dear Lord, anointing for all those that are participating in the play. Then, Lord, all that we do, we give you the glory. We give you the glory, Lord. We ask a blessing upon our streaming audience, that they will receive the Spirit that we've already received in this place. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good evening. Good evening. On behalf of Reverend Walter C. Harris, First Lady Sister Bioria Harris, and the members of the Ebony Ensemble, I am honored to welcome you to the 27th year of Black History Program, entitled Watch Out, God is in Control. We thank God for the opportunity to come to your homes this evening, and for you taking the time out of your schedule to support this program. It is our hope that you will enjoy this program. So again, welcome to our Black History Program titled, Watch Out, God is in Control. Amen.
Africans were forcibly brought to America as objects of racism. Racism is a disease characterized by the systematic oppression of a racial group to the social, economic, political access of another. Fundamentally and quite simply, racism is an attitudinal perception conceived by evil. Let us ask ourselves the question: since racism is a disease, is it classified as an epidemic disease, a pandemic disease, or an endemic disease? An epidemic is a rapid spread of disease that affects a specific region. Consider smallpox, meningitis, or yellow fever. A pandemic disease has a worldwide infectious effect. Some of the deadliest diseases include the bubonic plague, swine flu, and the dreaded COVID-19. An epidemic disease is a disease that is hidden or under control. The disease still lives among us with proper vaccination and personal care. Remember measles, chickenpox, diphtheria, mumps, tuberculosis, malaria, hepatitis, These are all diseases for which we can get inoculated. There are some people who refuse inoculation. I wonder, can we get inoculated against racism? Watch out, God is in control. Despite the oppression, prejudice, discrimination, and antagonism of racism, our people, but Black people, have been able to rise above this disease and make positive contributions to this life. Our history is rich with achievements of our ancestors. Think about it. There are inventors, educators, clergymen, scientists, politicians, cowboys, ballet dancers, opera singers, playwrights, innovators, businessmen, pioneers, actors, and composers who were Black people. And not too long ago, there was a Black president of the United States of America. The list is endless. Early American history tells us there were several men and women of color contributing to the Revolutionary War effort in one way or another. It is well known that Crispus Attucks, a Black man, was the first killed in this war. Somehow, we've interpreted the study of war had only one Black person in this war. Not so. Even though many of these records were lost, it is known that James Fortin, born free in Philadelphia, never regretted that he was a drummer, powder boy, and a prisoner of war. After the war, he became an inventor and a manufacturer. He also became an abolitionist and his friends and was friends with William Lloyd Garrison. One Black man, Other Black men who fought in the war included Agrippa Hall, Salem, Peter, James Armistead Lafayette, a master spy. One of the emerging poets during this period of American history was Phyllis Wheatley, who wrote often of her displacement from Africa to America. On Being Brought from Africa to America by Phyllis Wheatley. 'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my Benaiah soul to understand that there's a God and there's a Savior too. One sign redemption, neither salt nor new. Some view our sable face with scornful eyes, the color of a diabolic dye. Remember, Christians, Negroes, Black as Cain, may be refined and join angelic train.
Phyllis Wheatley was a captive African brought to Boston and sold as a slave to John Wheatley. Somehow he thought this 8-year-old girl would be a good companion for his wife Susanna. The family soon learned Phyllis was highly intelligent, so his family gave her lessons of theology, English, Latin, and Greek. Soon after, there were lessons in mythology and literature. As a result, Phyllis at some point began to read and write poetry. In 1773, Miss Wheatley published a book of poetry on various subjects, religious and moral, receiving patronage from Selina Hastings, the Countess of Huntington in England. Phyllis received international status and reputation as a writer. This was seemingly an anomaly, as captive Africans were discouraged from learning how to read or write. Abolitionists pointed out that her skills were proof that the Negro should be free. She wrote a poem for George Washington, the then Continental Army commander, who was so impressed he invited her to his headquarters in Boston, March of 1776. Phyllis was ultimately freed by the Wheatleys and later devastated by the deaths of several members of the Wheatley family. She married John Peters in 1778, and the couple had 3 children, all of whom died in infancy. Phyllis Wheatley died in childbirth on December 5, 1784.
to the Morning by Phyllis Sweetly. Attend my lays, ye honored line, assist my labors and my strains refine. In smoothest numbers for the notes alone, but bright aurora now demands my song. Aurora hails in all the thousand dyes, which decks thy progress through the vaulted skies. The morn awakes and the wide extends her rays, on every leaf the gentle zephyr plays. Harmonious lays the feathered race resume, dark the bright eye and shake the painted room. Ye shady groves, your verdant bloom display, to hear your port from the burning day. Calliope awake the sacred lie, while the fair sister fan the pleasing fire. The bows, the gales, the variegated skies, in all their pleasures in my bosom rise. See in the east, the lustrous king of day, his rising radiance drives the shade away. But oh, I feel his fervent beams too strong, and scarce concludes the abortive song.
The Tears of a Slave. Adieu to my dear native shore, to toss on the boisterous wave, to enjoy my kindred no more, but to weep the tears of a slave. By the sons of freedom I born, to a land of free and the brave. From my wife and children I'm torn, to weep the tears of a slave. When I think on mother and friends and the joy their continent gave, ah, how my sad bosom it rends while weeping the sad tears of a slave. Ah, now I must labor for gold to pamper the pride of knave. Ah, now I'm shackled and sold to weep the sad tears of a slave. Keen sorrows so press my heart. This often I sigh from my grave, while feeling the lashes cruel smart and weeping the tears of a slave. Ye sons of the free and the wise, you tender compassion I crave, at last can your bosom despise the pitiful tears of a slave? Can the land of Christians so pure let demons of slavery rave? Can the angel of mercy endure the pitiless tears of a slave? Oh, just heaven, to thee I appeal. Hast thou not the power to save? In mercy thy power reveal, and dry the sad tears of a slave. The 19th century was very tumultuous. Slavery was in full force. The Underground Railroad was in operation with Harriet Tubman at the helm. Slaves who were able rode the train to freedom. The Blight Codes were created and were designed to keep slaves submissive. Reading and writing was against the law for the slaves. Slaves who were caught reading or making marks were severely whipped, and in some cases, their fingers were broken or eyes gouged out. Other blight codes included slaves were not allowed to assemble in groups of more than five, slaves were not allowed to own property or testify in court, slaves were not allowed to buy and sell goods, slaves were not allowed to strike a white person. They were not allowed to conduct religious services unless a white person was present. They were not allowed to possess firearms, nor were they allowed to beat drums. Slavery, oh slavery, I cannot conceive why judges and magistrates do not relieve my downtrodden people from under thy hand. Restore them their freedom and give them their land. The loud voice of reason incessantly cries, ye lovers of Mammal, when will ye be wise? How long will misanthropy reign in your hearts? Behold the poor slaves and consider their smarts upon the plantation, their labor and toil. Exert all their strength and enrich the soil while the sun pours upon them. It's hot, scorching ray without intermission the whole live long day. Hope God by his power will save them at last and bring them as Israel in ages that pass out of the reach of proud slavery chain to enjoy the sweet comfort of freedom again.
The Civil War broke out in 1861. The Northern States Union Army went to war with the Southern States Confederate Army, who wanted to preserve their way of life. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation that became effective January 1st, 1863. The Union citizens of the United States and of the state where they reside. Amendment 15 says, the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Collectively, these amendments are known as the Civil War Amendments. Changing their way of life was difficult for a lot of people, not just Southerners. Thus, Jim Crow was born. Crow laws were developed to keep the free slaves segregated and submissive, which demonstrated the separate but equal doctrine. Some of these laws include the grandfather clause, which states if a black man's grandfather was a slave, he cannot vote. A literacy test must be taken to prove the black man could read and write. Miscegenation laws, some states forbade mixed marriage. It was against the law to rent a black family in the same building as white families live. And the list goes on and on, tailored to individual states in order to legally discriminate against the black people. In spite of Jim Crow, black folks continued crafting their art.
And God said, and he looked around and said, "Oh, I'm in the world." And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything. Blacker than 100 midnights down in the darkness. But then God smiled, and the light broke, and the darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other. And God said, "That's good." Then God took the light in his hands, and he rolled it around in his hands until he made the sun. And he set that sun blazing in heaven. And the light that was left from making the sun God gathered into a shining bowl, flung it across the darkness, fangling the night with the moon and the stars. Then down between the darkness and the light, he hurled the world. And God said, that's too long. Then God himself stepped down. The sun was on his right hand and the moon was on his left. The stars were twisted above his head and the earth was beneath his feet. And God walked. And where he walked, his footsteps hollowed the valleys out and bulged the mountains. But God stopped and looked and saw that the earth was hot and barren. So he walked over to the edge of the world and he spat out the seven seas. He batted his eyes and the lightning flashed. He clapped his hands and the thunder roared. And the waters above the heavens. The cooling waters came.
Yes.
Then the green grass sprouted. The red flowers blossomed. The pine tree pointed its fingers to the sky and the oak spread out its arms. The lakes cuddled down in the hollows of the ground and the rivers ran to the sea. God said, that's good. Then God raised his arms and clapped his hands over the sea and over the land, and he said, bring forth, bring forth. And quicker than God could drop his hands, fishes, fowls, beasts, and birds, swam the rivers and the seas, roamed the forests and the woods, and split the air with their wings. Then a rainbow appeared and wrapped his arms around his shoulders. God said, yes. Then God walked around him. He looked around on all that he had made. He looked at his sun, he looked at his moon, he looked at the stars, he looked at his world with all its living things. God said, come along and see. So God sat down by the side of the river. On the bank of the river, he thought and he thought, and with his hands in his head, he thought until he thought, I'll make me a man. Up from the bed of the river, he swooped, and by the bank of the river, he nailed him down. And there, this great God Almighty, who lit the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars to the most far corners of the night, this great God, like a man, kneeling over her baby, toiling over her mother's heart, until he shaped it in his own image. And then he left into the great light. And man came with it. Amen.
Listen, Lord, a prayer by James Weldon Johnson. Oh Lord, we come this evening, knee bowed and body bent before thy throne of grace. Oh Lord, this evening, bow our hearts beneath our knees, and our knees in some lonesome valley. We come this evening like empty pitchers to a full fountain, with no mirrors of our own. Oh Lord, open up a window of heaven, and lean out far above the battles of glory, and listen this evening. Lord, have mercy on proud and dying sinners. Sinners hanging over the mouth of hell, who seem to love their distant well. Lord, ride by this evening. Mount your milk-white horse and ride this evening. And in your ride, ride by old hell. Ride by the dingy gates of hell. And stop poor sinners in their headlong plunge. And now, O Lord, this man of God, who breaks the bread of life this evening, shatter him in the hollows of thy hand, and keep him out of the gunshot of the devil. Take him, Lord, this evening. Wash him with hyssop inside and out. Hang him up and drain him dry sand. Pin his ear to the wisdom post, and make his words clear him the truth. Beating on the iron heart of his head. Lord God, this evening, put his eyes to the telescope of eternity, and let him look upon the paper walls of time. Lord, turpentine his imagination. Put perpetual motions in his arms. Fill him full of the dynamite of thy power. Anoint him all over with the oil of thy salvation, and set his tongue on fire. And now, O Lord, and now, O Lord, when I done drunk my last cup of sour, when I have been called everything but a child of God, when I'm done traveling up the rough side of the mountain, oh Mary's baby, when I start down the steep and slippery slopes of death, when this old world begins to rock beneath my feet, lure me to thy dusty grave and peace, to wait for that great big morning. Amen.
James William Johnson was a civil rights activist, writer, composer, politician, educator, diplomat, and lawyer. He had many talents and wore several hats. As an educator, he taught elementary school and eventually becoming the principal. While teaching, he studied law and became the first Negro to pass the bar in Florida. He served as a professor of creative literature at Princeton University and a history professor at New York University. As a composer, he teamed with his brother, and the two of them composed over 200 songs. As a poet, Mr. Johnson wrote many poems. In fact, James wrote "Lift Every Voice and Sing" originally as a poem which was recited on Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Later, his brother wrote music for this poem and is currently known as the Black National Anthem. As a diplomat, he served in Venezuela and Nicaragua, appointed by President Peter Roosevelt. Upon returning to the States as an activist, he served in the NAACP, eventually becoming the executive secretary. James Weldon Johnson was killed in a car accident at the age of 67.
Blueberry Blues by Nancy Hughes. Drowning, a drowsy, syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow throat. I hear a Negro say, down on Lenox Avenue the other night, by the pale, dull halo of an old gas light. He did a lazy sway, to the tune of those weary blues. With his ebony hands on each ivory key, he made that poor piano moan with melody. Oh, blues, swaying to and fro on his record stool. He played that sad ragged tune like a musical fool. Sweet blues, coming from a black man's soul. Oh, blues, in a deep song voice with a melancholy tone. I heard that Negro sing that old piano. Ain't nobody in all this world, ain't got nobody but myself. I was gonna quit my frowning and put my troubles on the shelf. Thump, thump, thump. When his foot on the floor, he played a few chords, then he sang some more. I got the weary blues, and I can't be satisfied. I got the weary blues, and I can't be satisfied. I ain't happy no more, and I wish that I had died. And far into the night, he crooned that tune. The stars went out, and so did the moon. The singer stopped playing and went to bed, while the weary blues echoed through his head. He slept like a rock, or like a man at sea.
Now, and a home bill by Langston Hughes. You say I okay long distance? Okay, when? My goodness, Central, that was then. I'm mad and disgusted with that Negro now. I don't pay no reverse charges, no how. You say I pay, else you take out my phone? You You better let my phone alone. I didn't ask you to telephone me. Y'all folks know darn well long distance ain't free. If I ever catch him, Lord, have pity. Call me up from Kansas City. Just to say he loves me. I know that's so. Why didn't he tell me something I don't know? For instance, what can them other girls do that Alberta K. Johnson can't do? And Mo too. What's that, Central? You say you don't care? Nothing about my private affair? Well, even less about your phone bill than I care. Uh-huh. Yeah, you say I gave my okay. Well, that okay, you may keep. But I sure ain't gonna pay.
Benjamin O. Davis Sr. became the first black man in the military to rise to the rank of brigadier general in the United States Army. He participated in World War I, World War II, the Philippine-American War, and the Spanish-American War. His son, Benjamin O. Davis Jr., was brigadier general in the United States Air Force, rising to the rank of four-star general under President Bill Clinton. And rising through the ranks, in World War II, he commanded the Tuskegee Airmen, whose P-51 Mustang airplanes were known as the Red Tails. These airmen were trained in aerial combat during the Second World War. Nearly all these soldiers were college graduates or undergrads. During these years, racial segregation was the rule of the armed forces. The Red Tails were active from 1941 through 1946. Because of their success in the war, the military was desegregated by Executive Order number 9981 by Harry S. Truman, mandating equality of opportunity and treatment of Negro soldiers on July 26, 1948. The Navy grant of service power was sheared despite the amputation of his left leg, his leg being injured while on a bomb recovery mission, rose to the rank of Master Chief Petty Officer in 1970. Their tenacity inspired other nobles in our armed forces that include Henry Johnson of the 369th in the Army of World War I, Melvin Morris, Staff Sergeant in the Vietnam War, Alan Cash, Sergeant First Class, 2005, fighting Iraqis, and thousands of others in Desert Storm. Because of the service of all these soldiers, we can say thank you for your service.
Mason Hughes was born in Joplin, Missouri, raised by his grandmother until age 13 when he moved to Lincoln, Illinois, to live with his mother and his husband. There he began to write poetry. The family eventually moved to Cleveland, Ohio. After high school, Hughes spent a year in Mexico, then a year at Columbia University in Pennsylvania. Hughes traveled to Africa and Europe, and returned to the States to reside in Washington, D.C. Langston Hughes' work included novels, short stories, essays, operas, and plays. He was a columnist as well as a social activist. It was important to Hughes that his work reflect the merge of his personal experience and common experience of Black America while reflecting the actual culture, love of music, laughter, and the language instead of their suffering. A lot of Hughes' work portrays the lives of working class Black people in America. Hughes was quoted saying, "My people have been to explain and illuminate the Negro condition in America and the briefly that of all mankind." With his work, he was able to attack racial stereotypes, speak up about social conditions, and broaden the self-image of Black America. His work appeared in the racy peace and everyday crisis, common ground, and the Chicago Defender between leaders. Some contemporaries of peace include Celeste, Neil Hurston, Wallace Stern, Tom Kay, Council Cullen, and Arnold Montax. He was passed away May 22nd, 1967, at the age of 66, from complications due to abdominal surgery.
Thing for English speak. The instructor says, go home and write a page tonight. And let that page come out of you. Then you will be sure. I want you to say something. I am 22, colored, born in Winston-Salem, and I went to school there. Then Durham, then here, to this college on the hill of Oak Harbor. I'm the only college student in the class. The steps from the hill lead down into Harlem, through Harlem. Then I cross St. Nicholas, 8th Avenue, 7th Avenue, and I come to the block, the Harlem Bridge block, where I take the elevator up to my room, sit down, and write this page. And it's not easy to know what is true for you or me. At 22, my age, but I guess I'm what I feel and see and hear. Harlem, I hear you. Hear you. Hear you, hear me. We two, you, me, talk on this page. I hear you, you're too. Me, who? Well, I like to eat, sleep, drink, and be in love. I like to work, read, learn, and understand life. I like a pipe for a Christmas present, or records, Bessie, Bach, or Bach. I guess being colored doesn't make me not like the same thing right, for other races. So will my page be colored and I write? Being me, it will not be white, but it will be a part of you, instructor. You are white, yet a part of me as I am a part of you, and that's America. Sometimes perhaps you don't want to be a part of me, nor do I often want to be a part of you, but we are, and that's true. As I learn from you, I guess you learn from me, although you're older and white, and somewhat more free. And this is my page for English speaking.
I too miss the blues. I am the darker brother. They send me to the kitchen to eat when company comes. They send me to the kitchen to eat when company comes. But I laugh, eat well, and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say they eat in the kitchen then. Besides, let's see how beautiful you are. It'll be a shame. I am alone.
Let America be America again by Langston Hughes. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream, the dreamer's dream. Let it be that great, strong land of love, where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic grief, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white fool and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I see, and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am a young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owing everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the summer. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am a people, humble, hungry, mean. Hungry yet today, despite the dream, beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker borrowed through the years. Yet, I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream. In an old world, while still a servant of kings. Who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring things in every brick and stone, in every furrow turn. That's made America the land it has become. Oh, I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea, and torn from black Africa's strand I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we dreamed, and all the songs we've sung, and all the hopes we held, and all the flags we hung, the millions who have nothing for our pay, except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, who plowed in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me an ugly name you choose. The steel freedom does not stand. From those who live like leeches on people's lives, we must take back our land again. America. Oh yes, I say play.
One more, my pendulum. I got the children singing, the chorus man, the chorus mom, I got the boots shot, and then chicken shot. I got the baby shot, I got company feet, I got the doctor, I got shirts to cut, I got tops to cut, I got I got this, to go out and sit there. Shine, sun, shine, rain on me, rain. But if I could do that, it's all my brother again. So now come here with your business twin. Let me float across the sky so I can rest in come. I got children too, because there I was my I got food to shop, I got chicken shop, lady shop, I got company. We haven't got to passions and ancestors. Soldier is some place. Company with white wool, ice fists, and letting us tonight. Sun, rain, curtain, sky, mountain, snow, deep in stone. Sunshine, moon glow, you know all that I call my home.
Maya Angelou was born Marguerite in the St. Louis, Missouri. Her career was longer than 5 decades. As a poet, journalist, manuscript screenwriter, actress, director, producer of plays, movie producer, and civil rights activist. She has written 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, and several books of poetry. Ms. Angelou has been in plays, movies, and television shows. She is best known for her memoir, I Know Why Kids Murder Saints. It was the first nonfiction bestseller by a black woman. Margaret's parents, Vivian and Betty Johnson, ended their marriage when Margaret was 3 years old. When she was 8 years old, she was assaulted by her mother's boyfriend, Vivian. When Margaret told her mother in turn told the rest of the family what happened to her. This found guilty, only spent 1 day in jail. 4 days later, Vivian was murdered. Margaret refused to talk. You see, she thought she told what this man did to her, she caused his death. During her quiet years, Margaret developed her extraordinary memory, her love for literature, her observation skills, and her ability to listen actively. Her husband became blind. Angela physically were relative of her first husband's last name, Angela. That's her name by which everyone knows her as Maya Angelou. She helped to club throughout her life, cable car conductor, fire club battle, nightclub performer, actress, cast member of 4DFS, and correspondent in music and drama. She was independent as secretary of SCLC. I am also professor of Grammy Studies at Wake Forest University. I am was her from one of the most economic inauguration of buildings in 1998. Some of her personal acquaintances included Allen Michael as Ben Cole and Martin Luther King. She worked with Russell B. Brown, James Earl, Rodney Cambridge, and Cicely Tyson. She worked with her family down the road featuring Alfred Woodward and Wesley Snipes. Through the years of her, she has influenced hip-hop artists such as Kanye West, Kanye Tupac, and Nicki Minaj. During her lifetime, she has received numerous awards. Maya Angelou acquired this work in 2014 at the age of 86. She had one son, John.
Okay, bird by Maya Angelou. The free bird leaps on the back of the wind, floats downstream to the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to cleanse the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can barely see through bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful truth of things unknown but long for still. His home is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird dreams of another reason. The trade winds talk through the silent leaves. The fat worms waiting on dawnlit lawn. And he names the sky his home. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams, and his shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. For his wings are clipped, and his feet are tied. So he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings of a fearful thrill, a fearful trill of things unknown but long for still. And his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings for free.
Forced to make the best of a seemingly hopeless situation. Our people have survived the endemic disease of racism. As you know, our people have gone through many things through the years. We've been able to rise above oppression, prejudice, discrimination, and the antagonism of racism. It can be extremely difficult to harness because not only does it attack the person's heart, but it attacks from the outside as well. In the early years here in America, racism was blatant and within the guidelines of the law. For example, Black people were not permitted to learn and read and write. Even so, they were those who wrote poetry relevant to the time in which they lived. Reading these works, we should realize not only did, did these authors rebel against oppression, but their very nature also went against the popular notion that Black people cannot learn. What does that tell us? As the years progressed, it became clearer to the oppressors that our people have a lot to offer, but that disease keeps rearing its ugly head. Watch out, God is in control. God has given each one of us talents according to our ability. Look forward to God saying, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much." Don't be like the worthless servant who was wicked and slothful and buried his one talent. He was cast into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Don't be the parent who does not guide and teach the child about God, how to treat people, and how to do the right thing. You can rise. Don't be the inactive community activist, a dull knife that just ain't cutting. Always talking loud and ain't saying nothing. You can rise. Don't be the teacher who does just enough teaching to get a paycheck. You can rise. Don't be the church member who degrades other church members because of your own shortcomings. Seek God's forgiveness. You can rise. Don't be a victim of racism because you don't know your history. You can rise. Watch out. God is in control. God shows us every day that no matter what the circumstances, He is with us. Whatever the situation, God will bring us through and protect us from the endemic disease of racism. This disease may never go away. You can rise. Watch out. There's a vaccine, and it doesn't cost a thing. It is free to all, and you may receive as many doses as possible whenever you need it. The only thing you have to do is accept it. Just like God brought the Hebrew children out of bondage and led them safely by splitting the Red Sea to create a path for them. The Hebrew children walked through on dry land. When the Egyptian soldiers tried to cross the path that God created for his children, God closed the path and those soldiers drowned. The Hebrew children were safely on the other side. Who else can do that? Watch out. God is in control.
You may write down history with your bitter twisted lies. You may charge me with fair threats, but still I'm just. I'll rise. This month after this obsession, why do sex with love? Because I want my eyes got more nails pumping in my living room. Just like the moon, like the suns, with the certainty of time. Just like the hopes, spring out, here, I ground. Do you want to see it broken? Down here, going out, shoulders falling down my tiptoes. We can try to soak the progress. Because my heart is big. Don't you take out the color? Because I laugh like I got roll my heart, sitting in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, and you may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hate, but still like life, I rise. Just my sex is section. Does it come as a surprise? that I dance like I got diamonds and leaves in my eyes. I let hooks of history shine my eyes. Up from a path that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide. Well, I feel for the time. Leaving behind us with terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's shines. I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise.
Someone who cares for you.
Amen. Perhaps there's someone in the home who want to have the most walk with Jesus. And you heard earlier, Jesus never fails. I don't know about you, but I can testify to that Jesus never fails. And if you have not accepted Lord Jesus Christ, say,
Amen. You gotta think about we walked out in that water, right?
Yes, sir.
When he took his eyes off of the Lord, what happened? But the point is, he took his eyes off the rock. So I just want to encourage everyone and encourage anybody to keep your eyes on Christ. That's the only that's the only way to be saved anyway. So, if I forget anybody,
Videographer.
videographer, Keith and Valerie, so anyway, the second very challenge, trying to make it please man, you still on the line, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
I like to make it like who are lead us today. And I like that. They put a lot of effort and work into this program. She's been doing it almost 7 years. And I got to start about years. She said, this is what we going to do. And at that time, she said, this was 27 years ago. She said, when we do this, you got to focus on what you do. She said, first you do that, I will show you. And she said, second, it is first. And so I know this is getting here, and it is funny. And this is one of the many things that we could do together for the last 2 years. So I love my wife. Amen. So now we have another year. I like to thank all the people who came out to help me today. And I almost got away. The last one, I'm not really going to play. Carl, that's okay. I had this year. You got wonderful, and you are fantastic. And I hope to see you again next year. I want to thank Brother Teddy. He's been with us for the last 4 or 5 years. Very, very cool. Brother Keith on the drums. He's been with us for the last 2 or 3 years. And so I want to thank all of you that you guys that you put up with me. So I want to thank and I can say one thing, that God is truly in control. Because I would say yesterday we had one of the worst rehearsals ever, but also one of the best rehearsals ever. You know how you can be the best and the worst at the same time. Okay, but it was the worst of us, but it was the best from God. That's right. And so what God gave us, yeah, He gave us. We couldn't handle this. What He gave us brought us through that. Okay, I will do a selection. Father, thank you. I thank you for this day. I thank you for all those who are looking out there. I thank you, Lord. I hope that someone, somewhere, in some place, receives something that they can build on, that they can grow on. Lord, and I thank you that you give us the opportunity to do this. Lord, I thank you for this situation which we are in. Yeah, we got social distance, we got to keep all those things. But there's one thing that you have brought us together in a more worldwide. Lord, we used to do this every year. And we did it in the whole congregation. This you brought to I would say the world. I know you have something. You have something. Jesus. You have something. You have something. In the East States, we have people who are all listening to this. So I thank you for this pastor. And I thank you because he was supported us. He was supported to this place. And I thank you. And I thank you for all